Hey everybody, hi, this is Virginia Muskies, the Referral Diva. This is Get Connected, and this is where BNI members go to get all the information they need to increase their ROR, and where business owners and entrepreneurs can learn how to build a business that fuels their passions and funds their dreams by using advanced word of mouth techniques to expand their network and leverage their connections. So I'm really excited today because I have with us a great colleague and friend, Brennan Scanlon. As I said a little bit earlier before we came fully online, Brennan is an executive director with BNI. He owns a couple of franchises, just as I do. And he is also a co-owner of the Referral Institute franchise. It's for Cincinnati, right? Or is it for Kentucky?
It's for Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky.
Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky. And so we were Referral Institute buddies for a while, and I am just so thrilled to introduce him to all of you because he is a brand new author of an amazing book. Here it is, right here. It is called Avoiding the Networking Disconnect. So, Brennan, why don't you just start with answering the question that's on everybody's mind, which is, what the heck is that? Like, what's a networking disconnect?
Well, the networking disconnect is actually something that Dr. Ivan Misner and I speak about early on in the book, and it's hard for me to get a show of hands, but I'll get a virtual show of hands. If you were to ask an audience of networkers, however many.
Do you see all the bubbles going up and down, Brennan? There
Sorry?
hands, they're all clapping.
Oh,
see on your screen?
All right.
Yeah, that's so.
I do see that.
If you love Brennan already, show Brennan some love. Give him some hands up. Ready? Give him props.
Oh my gosh.
Props.
All right. So I haven't asked the question yet, though. So the question is in an audience full of people, you have to find out how many of you in the room came here with every intention to sell something. In other words, if somebody made a connection with you and they like what you had to offer, wouldn't it be nice if you sold something today? How many people raise their hands, do you think, that say, yeah, I'd love that? What percentage?
Everybody.
Yeah, 90 to 100%. Yeah,
Yep.
Pretty much. If they're in sales, yes. On the other hand, when you ask a follow-up question to that and you say, how many of you came here with full intention to buy, potentially from somebody you just met today, how many hands do you think go up?
Two. Zero.
Very few hands go up. What's the point? The networking disconnect is that everyone comes to sell, but not everyone comes to buy. So therein lies the disconnect.
You know, it's funny, a while back, I think it was Tim Green out in Michigan did a presentation, and he stood up in front of the room and he said, everyone please take out your list. And then there was like dead silence, and everybody sort of looked around at each other, and some ladies like dug in their purse and they pulled out a list, and he said, who has a list? And they held their list up and he said, read me the list. And inevitably it was like butter, eggs, cheese, milk, brisket. Yeah. And he's like, all right, do we have any grocery store owners here? Because if we do, you are in business. The rest of you, you're screwed.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a very good point. I love Tim.
So, yeah, he's quite the jokester. So in this book, one of the things that I like is typically we think that the disconnect, I've always thought at least that the disconnect was just kind of that one thing, right? And I've always thought about what I call networking poker. It's when you're like flinging out your business card to everybody, and everybody's flinging out business cards, and people putting business cards on tables, and like, okay, I know that they don't do any good on your desk, but they don't do anything in anybody's trash can either. So there's got to be a better way. And that's kind of where I've always left the networking disconnect. What's really cool about your book is that you've identified a lot of different kinds of behaviors that actually create the networking disconnect. It's not just one behavior or one mindset. So how about if we kind of go through the book, like there are 5 parts. So why don't we go through kind of like part 1 and part 2. So we've done kind of part 1. What is the networking disconnect? So in part 1, you talk about finding your why, which goes to clarity. So why don't you talk a little bit about how important understanding your why is to avoiding the networking disconnect?
Yeah. So when Ivan and I started talking about the book and how we were going to craft it and organize it, I envisioned a circle. And that circle is a metaphor for the relationship or all the relationships in your life. And if you read in the beginning of the book, it speaks to the idea of a circle as much like energy, much like an electrical current. So if an electrical current has a break in it, it stops the flow of energy. Similar, if a personal relationship has a break in it, it stops the flow of energy. So there's really a series of steps to make sure that a relationship goes full circle. And I'll ask you another question. If I ask an audience, what do you think the absolute first thing you should do before you network is, what do you think some people generally respond?
Take a shower.
Maybe. That's a good one. Well, they think do cards. They say bring cards, study your audience, so on and so forth. But again, that's about going out. So the first step is what you just described, and that is focus in. Take a shower. Take a brand shower. Take a personal value shower. What are the things that you stand for? Why will anyone care? How do you come off? Tim Green is also very famous in telling us about the funneling conversation. How do you respond when people say, who are you, what do you do, and why will anyone care? So, and that all stems from the why. And of course, you know from previous trainings that it's the Simon Sinek, start with why. It's not about what you do, it's about why you do it. And he refers to that as the golden circle. So I'll give you, for instance, there's a couple of things in the book. There's one young lady named Christine Lucan, and Christine is the financial lifeguard. But in fact, she's a debt coach. So if Christine goes to an event and she says, Virginia, nice to meet you. And nice to meet you, Christine. And she says, you say, what do you do? And she says, I'm a coach. I'm a debt coach. What are you thinking? If somebody tells you they're a debt coach, what are the first three or four thoughts that come into your head?
Either I'm not in debt, so I don't need you. I don't want to know that I'm in debt. I don't want to think about it. Or I know I'm in debt, but I don't really want to do anything because that's hard work.
Or I'm paralyzed.
They're either in denial or procrastinating.
Right. So all of these things are just quick and negative. So I'll give you, for instance, if somebody says I'm a financial planner, it's quick, so it's logical, but it's also, I guess I need a plan. Whereas a debt coach, I guess I need coach. I'm in debt. Here's the difference. That's an explanation from here, not here. So what Christine has done is she's changed that language, and she goes back to a time in her life where she remembered why she got into that business. I'll give you a for instance. There was a time in her life where she was sitting across from a lake with her boyfriend, who at the time was the reason she was deep in debt. And she looked at him and she said, if I don't kick you off right now, I feel like I'm swimming across that lake, and if I don't kick you off right now, we're both going to drown. It's over. And now what she tells people is, I help people who are drowning in debt by throwing them a lifeline, getting them to a safe place, and then teaching them how to swim. And if you get the benefit of hearing that, you'll almost see a conviction in her face. And she even wears a little lapel and a necklace that has a little life vest on it. These types of things make someone interesting and charismatic and unique, as opposed to just saying what they do. So we spent an entire first part on those types of findings for each individual.
That's awesome. You know what? And I know this is, you and I have worked in, we do basically the same thing, just in different parts of the country. And I'll remember I started working with a gal who does promotional products. And like the last thing, hi, what do you do? I sell promotional products. People are like, I need pens. And obviously pens is not all that lucrative, or people are like, I can get that online. So she changed her description of herself from I sell promotional products to I'm a loyalty architect. And it's neat, right? They're like, well, what is that? Well, I create the infrastructure and the architecture so that your clients become raving fans and that they stay loyal to you, and you don't have to, you close the back door. So she works on closing the back door. So that, I think, is really great advice. If you don't really understand it, what the problem you solve is, like, what problem are you passionate? So your lifeguard is about, helping people get out of that feeling, that desperate feeling of drowning in debt and coming up for air, and then being able to create a life that makes sense and that gives them peace. And I think that's a great first step for people to do. I love this. One of the chapter 13 in your book is titled Inspirational Language Delivered with Passion Moves People. Yeah. And I think that's really what you're talking about.
Right. I'd love to touch on that.
Yes,
first thing, everything you've said is 100% right. One of the biggest things that people do is I talk about focusing on yourself, but then you have to, the goal of focusing on yourself means, how am I going to be seen? So in other words, why you look in the mirror is literally to think to yourself, when I'm connecting with someone, how is this coming off? Because oftentimes in sales, it's not that way. It's, you know what you want to sell, you know what you want to achieve. Whereas you told me at a Referral Institute conference one time, it's not about a unique selling proposition, it's about a unique buying reason. And that's what it's really about. So to that point, with the inspirational language delivered with passion moves people, do the words that you choose matter? Do the words that you choose matter? Yes.
Absolutely.
How you deliver those words, the conviction, the vocal inflection, does that matter?
Absolutely.
Great. So if you take those two together, and the word selection and word, I don't know how much I can emphasize this point. People make many statements about what they do for a living, and they're almost always changing. So they have a real mixed bag. And then when they deliver them, it's also a mixed bag of energy level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the recipe is to have a strong set of words that you've chosen and deliver them with a serious conviction every time. And that's what moves people. It moves them two ways. It moves them financially, it moves them emotionally, and then it moves them financially. In other words, they buy.
Yeah, you know what, Brendan? And this is because we are here for all entrepreneurs that want to learn how to grow by referral, right? But you and I both know that we have a very large focus of wanting our BNI members who are really immersing themselves in this process, and for our Referral Institute clients to really immerse themselves in the process to really get this. And the one thing that I notice in BNI networks, and then any kind of business over breakfast, anywhere where people are sort of standing up and doing a 1-minute powerhouse spiel, right? They do exactly what you just said. They say something different every time, as if that was going to help them, because they're so afraid of being boring that, or they bore themselves, right? Like their message is so blah for them that they're not even passionate. I've been saying I help business owners build businesses that fuel their passions and fund their dreams for 4 years now. And I never tire of saying that, because it's my absolute heart. And every time I say it, I get fired up. And I think that, to your point, it's when you're going to meet every single week and say the same thing every single week, you think that you're boring everybody. But if you're passionate about what's coming out of your mouth, inspiring beyond, right?
And let's go there with BNI real quick, because I know you've got a lot of BNI members in your audience. So understand that if you're delivering a 60-second presentation, or if you're in a chamber of commerce and you get a one-off opportunity, I like to tell people that you should have a bookending to your passion. So for instance, the first five, let's pick a 60-second in BNI. The first 5 to 10 seconds should be the same. The last 5 to 10 seconds should be the same. And then in the middle is where you talk about a unique story, a unique example that is different, that is maybe your call to action. So in other words, Christine might open her presentation with, I'm a lifeguard, I throw people a lifeline, so on and so forth. Whereas I'll open my presentation, and if you read the book, you'll know why. I say I help people create referrals for life by helping them create the richest relationships of their lives. And there's a whole story behind that I know that I'll tell people once I get into relationship with them. But that richest relationships of your life has to be something, if that's my version, what's yours, that has to be branded across all the channels that you do business. I'm talking from when you're in the room, when your business cards, when your email signature, if you get the opportunity to do radio. We can only remember people that have continuity, and continuity, to your point, is lacking in small business marketing.
Yeah. Hey, Brennan, turn down your volume on your speakers a little bit, because everybody's hearing a lot of reverb.
Okay.
So I'm getting a whole bunch of messages about that. So that,
got it.
I don't know if that's a little better for everybody, but cool. Okay, so let's move on to the part 2, because we don't have all morning, right? You got places to be. So it says, don't make a move before making a plan. What's that about? Plan when you're networking. Don't make a move without making a plan. What's that about?
The next part is to identify where your target market lies. So think about your starting point here and your ultimate target market here. And before we go on, there's a hint. And the hint is, what are you passionate about in your emotion? What we're referring to is emotionally charged connection. And who will that resonate with out here? And then you have the distance. You have the gap. You have to fill that. So you can go from anywhere to BNI chapters, chambers of commerce, You can go to social and civic organizations. You can go to backyard barbecues. But you have to understand, where do I need to network? Who can I connect with, and in what way? So now we're talking about really making a plan, an intentional plan for your networking, and have it be an aha moment. So I'll give you a for instance. In the book, we talk about contact spheres. Everybody in BNI knows the contact sphere theory, right? But let me ask you, Virginia, if I'm with my wife and it's late in the evening and I'm driving to what is a grocery store, at least I think I'm going to the grocery store, but I ended up at another one, and I find myself at a place where I can spend more on groceries, but they're healthy groceries, where do you think I am?
Whole Foods.
I am at Whole Foods. And that's not my choice, that's my wife's choice. And I'm going around Whole Foods and I'm buying groceries and I'm picking these things off the shelf that I'm like, wow, really, we're going to eat this? Doesn't look very nutritious and appetizing. And I get to the checkout line, and I go outside, and my wife tells me, we can't leave yet. We have to go next door. And she points next door. Where might you guess next door is?
Next door to Whole Foods?
Yes. It's a lot of options.
Oh my God. I have no idea.
In our area, it's Discount Shoe Warehouse. So now my wife has me.
Yeah, here Whole Foods. I don't know. Our Whole Foods is by like Nordstrom Rack, I think. Yeah, it's by a discount clothing store.
You know what's crazy is that we have a Nordstrom Rack on the other side. So either way.
Well, that's got to be on purpose. That is weird.
So think about it. Retailers, no matter how big or small, they get really good at lining each other up. So I asked the question, and incidentally, this is a true story. My wife and I were in Whole Foods and then Discount Shoe Warehouse, none of which was my decision. I happened to be with her. Now I'm driving home with food and shoes that I had no intention of buying, and I like to ask, how do you think I got there?
By referral.
By referral of my wife. And what do Whole Foods and DSW have in common? The answer is nothing.
That's not true.
Well, here's the thing. Product-wise, they have food and shoes, have nothing in common. So what do they share? They share women.
Women who have a level of disposable income.
Right.
So it's women, because those are the decision makers for the most part. Those are people buying the groceries. So, and women love shoes and bags and that sort of stuff. And then it's got to be some sort of a demographic that has a specific, that level of income that's disposable that they can use, because otherwise they would shop at Aldi.
You nailed it. So it's 25 to 45 females, discretionary income, who care about how they feel and care about how they look, and they buy those things. So I was with one. So what I'm getting at is that small businesses are products of this. In other words, we make buying decisions based upon what everyone else's plan is for us, but we're not as good at making a plan for ourselves and aligning ourselves. And what I refer to that's a contact sphere. Those who share your clients but are not your competition, but that's a target market contact sphere.
Slow down and say that again, because that was genius.
That contact sphere is those people that share your clients but are not competition, but that's not
share your clients, but they're not competition.
Correct. That is what's called a target market contact sphere. That's why I said food and shoes, nothing in common, but what they have in common is the end buyer. So,
right.
Having said that, bring it full circle. When you start your day, when you start your week, you should be swimming in pools with people who either share your professional classification but aren't competition, or share your target market but aren't competition. It's the reason that people do power teams in BNI, but then a financial advisor will go and join a country club. That financial planner may hate golf.
He's going to play.
But they go there because they know that they're swimming in the right pool. And really, I think that's what making a plan comes down to. And I'll share one last thing that Dr. Meisner introduced in the book. Do you remember the phrase RAS, Reticular Activation System?
Activation. Yeah.
Great. So it's the monkey video, which we won't talk about that now, but I'll give you a great example where you do see it. Have you ever gone out to purchase a car and you start narrowing it down and say, I really want a red Camry? And then lo and behold, what do you start seeing on the road?
Yeah. You know my red Cadillac CTS story? Do you know about that?
No, using
that, I'm saying, well, because I think if you give people 3 cues, then they'll get at least one of them, as long as they have 3 cues. So I would say, You know, for example, tonight I want you to go home. I did a 3-day workshop. Tonight I want you to go home and take a picture of cars that have steering wheels. And the next day everyone would come back and nobody had pictures. The next night I sent everybody home and I said, I want you to take pictures of red Cadillac CTS, right? Well, they all brought pictures back. Some were Cadillac, some were CTSs, some were red CTSs, some were Cadillac Escalade. Like they were all different kinds, but they were either red, they were a Cadillac, or they were a CTS. Well, here's what is even funnier. So for 5 years, I did that exact example. About, I guess it was in June, an auto wholesaler in the BNI network calls me on the phone and says, I have your car. And I said, what car? And he said, that red Cadillac CTS you've been looking for.
Oh my God.
And I said, dude, I'm not looking for a red Cadillac CTS. And he's like, you're kidding me, because it's here. I have it. Like, it's the bomb. Come look at it. And and I said, no, I wouldn't buy it. And Vic went and bought it. He's like, you've been talking about it for 5 years. I'm like, no, I was just using it as an example. So watch what you talk about, because in no time, it's going to be in your driveway, in your closet. Like, careful.
I love it. Power of specificity. Right? So when you take a look at those situations, when you have your reticular activating system on, here's what I'm getting at. For those who are listening right now, we miss opportunities all the time because we're not paying attention to the types of people we can network with and how to really corral them. So reticular activating will show you things that you didn't see before.
Perfect. And, you know, the title of chapter 2 is Don't Make a Move Before Making a Plan. So here's my big BNI aha. And this is an aha for me. You might just look at me and be like, oh, duh, Virginia. But you know how you're in a BNI meeting and there are notes, right? And so Brennan wants to meet a handyman and Virginia wants to meet a carpenter. And you're taking notes about who everybody wants to know. And so as you're going through and you're writing those things down, you're like, nope, don't know one. Nope, don't know one. Nope, don't know any of them. Nope, don't have any connections. And when you get to the end of it, you're like, well, I guess there's nothing I can do this week. Right? Like that's exactly how I started observing my mind.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, we are missing out on the one plan that will make all the difference. And you know what it is? That is your networking shopping list. You go out and you say, oh, hi, plumber. I have a person who wants to meet you. Oh, hi, carpenter. I know somebody who'd like to meet you. You start to use social media. You start to use your LinkedIn. You start to use all your connections to start asking for introductions to the people that your friends want to meet. And if everybody is doing that, right? If everybody just took 10 minutes a day to do a scavenger hunt to find somebody that was asked for that week, can you imagine what would happen to the productivity in our regions? It would be crazy.
Yeah, it would go way up. So go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, so there's a plan. There's a great plan.
That's a great plan. But I think the next part of the book, and that's a perfect way to segue, can you cue it up? Because I want to come back to that point based on the next part.
Yeah. Part 3, get yourself off your mind. Get yourself off your mind.
The hardest thing people do is stop thinking about themselves. So let me come back to your illustration. BNI chapters in Missouri, in Cincinnati, in Dubai, it doesn't matter. There are a group of people who are listening to one person at a time, and in theory, everyone's taking notes. Now, we know that if you don't have a specific ask for that week, your name does not get written down, which is your fault if you don't have anybody take action. But if you do have an articulate ask, and you say, I do want to meet that person, or excuse me, you do say there is somebody that are you still with me?
Yeah,
okay,
my thingy crashed. Don't worry, I got it.
Okay. All right, sweet. So anyway, so if you have a specific ask that lands, so let's say, for instance, Virginia, you know the person that I'm asking for this week. And you say to yourself, yeah, I've got a connection with ABC Plumbing. Here's the deal. If you and I have developed a relationship, if I've established trust with you, we're both in visibility and credibility. If I've gone out of my way to take you to lunch, give you a note card afterwards, look for 3 or 4 opportunities for you, and ultimately am just responsive to your requests, you're going to come up to me after that meeting and you're going to take action. Because you will feel that need to. It's the law of reciprocity. You will want to reciprocate. But you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, if I've never gone out of my way for you, if I've never followed up with you, if I've never made any efforts with you to try to help you, you'll know that you know the person I'm trying to meet, but will you take action?
Only under one other circumstance, and that is you're either really supporting somebody that matters to me. So Maybe you're not able to give referrals to me, but I brought my best friend to this group and you are just feeding her cupcakes every single opportunity you get. Or you are somebody who is super influential in the group. So even though maybe you haven't had an opportunity to give a referral to me, you've rolled up your sleeves and you've helped create something that I get to be a part of. So that matters to me. But it still all is based on you giving to me or someone or some group that matters to me.
You got it. And that's a great observation. Most people would say, no, I wouldn't. But if I'm impressed that you would say, well, it depends on if I've seen you giving to other people within the group. So what we talk about here, and this is also part of this section in the book, and it's called the idea of social capital.
Yeah.
Great example of financial capital is if you go to the bank today and you make a deposit day in and day out, eventually you come back, you make a withdrawal, it's not a problem. But if you go to a bank that you've never made any deposits at and you try to make a withdrawal, do you know what they call you?
Robber.
Yes, they will throw you in jail if you make that attempt. And it's the same thing with social capital. And to your point, I don't care if you can't help everybody in the chapter. It's not going to happen. It's physically impossible to pass high-level referrals to every contact sphere. But what is possible is you can be seen as a giver and somebody who's trying to make deposits. And my opinion is this: 5 deposits before ever making a withdrawal.
Yeah.
5 deposits. And that can be to the chapter at large through leadership, visitor hosts. It can be individually. And the thing that's really unfortunate is when you have people who find out that you're connected to my referral request, but you took no action, and then I don't realize why you're not taking action, because that's a disconnect in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that's so interesting about a BNI group, Brendan, I started doing math. Let's say you got a group of 30 people, right? If everybody takes 10 minutes a day to work on that list, in one day, that's 300 minutes, which is 5 hours of networking. So you get the benefit of 5 hours of networking for 10 minutes of your time.
Yes.
Right? It's huge. Now multiply it times 4 days a week. Now you're getting 20 hours of networking, the benefit of 20 hours of networking for 40 minutes of your time. To me, the leverage on the time because I just started thinking about when people start thinking about doing referral marketing, and you know this, whether people are coming into BNI or whether they're coming into referral marketing training, like a referral institute training, they're like, wow, this takes a lot of time. I mean, you got to do all these one-on-ones, and then you got to like do all this research for people, and there's all this work. But I've consistently seen that if you can really sell somebody on the idea that if you do 10 minutes for 20 people and 20 people do 10 minutes for you, everybody's going to be more successful because somebody's going to hit the jackpot somehow. It's like going to the casino. You're putting your quarters in, right? Somebody's going to hit that jackpot if enough people are putting quarters in the machine.
You got it. And it's an odds play. Yep.
Yeah. That's great. All right. So we got one chapter left to talk about. And that is the networking good life. Go. What the heck is that?
So the networking good life comes down to some great examples. And you know what? Can I squeeze in one more thing? We talked about the, what do you call it? The get yourself off your mind. But we didn't talk about the don't disconnect or avoiding the networking disconnect, because the networking disconnect is actually more than just people raising their hands to sell but not raising their hands to buy. It's also those things that we do that keep you from continuing to profit from the relationships. So I'll give you a quick for instance in that. I love this story. It's called Are You Unintentionally Abusing Your Relationships? So in the book, Dr. Meisner and I tell a story about a woman who goes to a birthday party. At least she thought it was a birthday party, but when she arrived, she showed up to a flip chart, a guy in a suit, and a business opportunity. And lo and behold, she thought she was there to relax, eat, talk, and she sat through a 45-minute to, I think, an hour presentation on how she can take advantage of this great opportunity. Well, there's a great example of how you can abuse what you thought was a good relationship. So let's go back. Maybe you worked up a good relationship with somebody. They totally get your message, what we call your emotionally charged connection. They know your passion. They know why you're in business. you've made a good plan with them. Maybe you're in a BNI chapter with them and you're making good relationship progress. And then maybe you've done a few things for them. You've given them an opportunity. Well, the fourth part of that is don't relapse. Don't make a bad decision. And don't take them to a business opportunity disguised as a birthday party, which is exactly what this woman did. And it totally screwed up that relationship. So don't abuse your relationships by turning around and screwing up the progress you've made.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then finally, Brennan, really address that networking good life. So I know we talk about 3 kinds of networks, and I've always maintained that the easiest way to live the networking good life is to create good referral partners and then turn them into information and support partners. It's really hard to get an information partner to want to give you referrals, right? So talk a little bit about how to create that networking good life. What do you?
My favorite story in the networking good life is. Sorry?
How much time? Like, what does it take to get this awesome good life?
The rest of your natural life. No, there is no. I think the minimum time it would take to develop a good relationship is forget about a year membership in BNI. I hear people say all the time, it's the worst, and I agree. BNI is the worst 1-year decision you'll ever make.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Your first year is just developing rapport, know, like, trust, and the beginnings of what can be a great 2- and 3-year relationship. And Dr. Meisner talks in the book about how the results come last. Relationships first, referrals second, and the results in the first year is just developing the basis of a relationship. So, but I want to talk about the best relationship I had that came out of this book. In the Networking Good Life, gentleman's name is Seth Shipley. Seth is a jeweler in Maryland. He originally saw me do a keynote at the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs in front of about 350 people. He comes up to me afterwards, and he introduces himself and says, "I really enjoyed your message, so on and so forth." I'll fast forward. Over the course of 5 years, 5 years, he's brought me to Maryland 4 times. He has personally gotten me into Nationwide Insurance, who I now do regular training for. He's flown me up to Carroll Community College in Maryland, where I am now an adjunct faculty member. I've brought him down here. He stays at my house. We go to sushi. I go up there. I go hang out with his family. I've now referred him to as many people as I know, not so much on a jeweler's thing, but he wants to do auctioneering, and he wants to do liquidate sales, all these things. So what am I saying is that here's a guy from Maryland. I'm from Cincinnati. That's 11 hours away. But he's had a huge impact on my life, and I'm having a huge impact on his life. And to me, that's living the networking good life, is because we are the deepest of friends because we know what the other person's ultimate goal and passion is, and we're both going to make each other highly successful. In fact, the whole book has him in it from beginning to end. So now I'm marketing the guy. I'm marketing him.
This is so awesome because Leland found the link. There's the link to your book on Amazon. So anybody that wants to get it, Leland has pinned the link for us, which is totally awesome. So you can get Brennan's book. Brennan, is there a website where people can contact you? Like if somebody's listening and they want to bring you out to speak, where can they get in touch with you? We see that you can follow him at J. Brennan Scanlon on Twitter. You can tweet him through there if you want to do that. So yeah. So yep. How can they get a hold of you?
You bet. It's BrennanScanlon.com. Just my name, as you see, it's listed there. .com, and you can connect with me also on LinkedIn or Facebook under the same names. I do a lot of Facebooking. It's a lot of fun, and you know that very well. So any of those ways, I'd love to connect with you.
That's great. So if anybody has any last questions, I think, Brennan, you have about 4 or 5 more minutes that you can hang out. I think you told me you need to be done by 10 your time. So if anybody has any questions, I know somebody did pin the question, what is this BNI and how do I get involved? BNI is a global network. We've got over 192,000 members worldwide. There are about 7,200 chapters. Chapters are really what they are is referral teams. So what Brennan and I do is we coach referral teams, which is the coolest thing ever. When you have 15, 20, 30, 40 people getting together, all learning how to avoid the networking disconnect by doing the things that are in this book, and making each other a priority, getting out of their own way, getting out of worrying about their business on a daily basis and letting other people worry about their business for them, because it's way, way easier to help someone else grow their business than for us to run around saying, will you be my client? Will you be my client? Will you be my client? Which I call, it's Are You My Mama marketing, Dr. Seuss marketing, right? It's way easier to say, I got a friend who'd like to meet you. Oh, I have a friend who'd like to meet you. So we regularly say, what do you do for a living? And I say, I connect the people I meet to the people they need to know to solve their top of mind problems. And that is pretty sexy. And people really like to know you. And somebody said they don't have that problem, which is awesome. Yeah. I mean, if you're really well connected and everything's going great, that's awesome. But if you're looking for a good referral team and that's something you'd like to do, you can send me a tweet at the Referral Diva and let me know where you are. And I'll hook you up with an executive director in your area. If you are in the Southern Illinois, St. Louis, St. Charles, Missouri region, then I would be the person that could help you visit a BNI chapter and just see what it's all about. And guys, if you've never seen one, just go visit one. I mean, just look up BNI in your region and just go visit one to watch how it works, because it's an exceptional opportunity. And, you know, when people say, what does it cost? My standard question is, Brennan, how much would you expect it would cost you to hire a marketing team and then get a sales manager too for your business?
Yeah, $60 to $80 to $100,000 depending per person.
Yeah, per person, right? So for $50 a month, more or less, is what it averages out to be. You get a referral marketing coach that's going to help, and a system that's going to help you do that. And the system, gosh, Ivan, this is his 17th book that he's co-authored with people. 18th? Is it 17th? It's 20. So, you know, the books are out there, but you know what? Between what is read and what is done, much is read and little is done. Most people don't read and implement. They just read and say, whoa, I read a book. Yeah, coaching is just great, and that's BNI is a great way to get started on referral marketing coaching. So, if there are any questions, you can bring them on. And Brennan, I'm going to give you the last word.
Okay, I'll come back to the beginning, and I want to ask everybody to remember that every relationship in their life is much the same as a circle with current. If you remember, you and I shared a passion for a phrase, Virginia, and it was called, "It's all my fault."
Oh, so yeah.
As you go out and as you network, chambers, BNIs, social, civic, online, social media, it doesn't matter. If the relationships are not coming full circle and not bearing fruit for both parties, it's your fault. And I don't know how else to say that but candidly, because it took me a long time to realize that you can't blame other people for your lack of success in networking, because there's always something. And even if it is their fault, it's your fault for networking with them. You know, which means you've got to reel back some of these relationships and understand that I'm not going in the right path. So let me say this. I'll end with a quote, a couple of quotes by Thomas Edison that work well with my theory of electric through current. Number one is, many and most of life's failures are people that had no idea how close they were to success when they gave up. So you may be this close to great relationships, but again, it's on you to take them full circle. And the other one is that opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. And that's the root word of network. So remember that it's going to be work, but once you get it right, it's the best type of work there is, in my opinion. So I want to thank you for having me on, Virginia. It's a pleasure.
Brennan, thank you so much for being with us. Everybody give Brennan some props, will you, so that he knows that we love him and that we're grateful for the time he spent this morning. Check out his book, Avoiding the Networking Disconnect, and come back next week, Monday morning at 8 o'clock for the Get Connected show. I look forward to sharing more great networking tips with you and helping you live the networking good life. You guys, bye, and have a great day.